Hey and welcome, I'm Hammeh, and in my ongoing exploration of everything Overwatch lore and story related, it's time to take a look once more at skins. Many of Overwatch's skins have rich historic or cultural references behind them that give a lot of background and talking points to the lore and stories of our favourite heroes and villains. Some are canon and directly show us things about the characters, most very much aren't, but either way they have awesome details that I'll be explaining and exploring in this series. In this video, I'll be taking a look at the story and history behind Mercy's Overwatch Summer Games skin, Winged Victory. I'll be explaining a bit about the background of the Greek gods and Nike, goddess of victory, the Roman sister goddess to her Victoria, and how the skins show off several aspects of this winner's historic characteristics from myth and legend, as well as seeing other places that we can see Nike referenced today. To explain Winged Victory correctly, we need to take a look at two different pantheons of ancient myth, gods and legend. I'll primarily focus on Nike, the Greek goddess, but there's an equal argument for Mercy's skin being part based on Victoria, her Roman equivalent. In a gross simplification, as I'm not an ancient Greek or Roman scholar, the study of Greco-Roman gods and myths like the Egyptian gods that I've covered before gets a little bit complicated. As you pass through different historic eras and different narrators or methods of storytelling, the gods and goddesses and how they're represented changes. Some can even fuse together or be split apart, like Athena Nike, for example, who has a temple on the Parthenon in Athens, Greece to this day. So before we get into the tales of myths and legends, monsters and gods and goddesses, I'll give you a very quick summary of a timeline of Greek myth and legend. There's very roughly three time periods. The first is the myth of origin, or the age of the gods, the theogonies, the births of gods, and these contain things like myths about the origins of the world, the gods, and the origins of the human race. The next is the age when mortals and gods mingled freely together. Stories of earthly interactions and early interactions between gods, demigods, and mortals. So gods coming and interfering or getting involved with the affairs of humanity. The third and last is the Age of Heroes, where divine activity was a little bit more limited. So the last and greatest of these heroic legends, for example, is the story of the Trojan War, which is regarded by some people as a separate fourth period. You'll probably be familiar with the term Trojan horse, if nothing else. Now, to get you up to speed before Niki's story starts, I'll give you a very quick summary of the creation myth of Greek myth and legend. The most widely accepted version, although it's kind of philosophical, is reported by Hesiod in his Theogony. Everything began with chaos, a yawning nothingness. Out of this void emerged Gaia, the earth, and some other primary divine beings such as Eros, love, the abyss, and the Erebus. Gaia gave birth to Uranus, the sky, and from their union were born first the Titans, 6 males and 6 females. After the youngest of these, Cronus, was born, Gaia and Uranus decreed no more Titans were to be born. Their other children, the 100-handed giants and the one-eyed Cyclops, were thrown into Tartarus by Uranus, which made Gaia furious. Cronus, the wily, youngest and most terrible of Gaia's children, was convinced by his mother to castrate his father, and he did this and became the ruler of the Titans, with his wife Rhea as his consort, and the other Titans became his court. Because Cronus had betrayed his father, he feared that his offspring would do the same, and so each time Rhea gave birth, he snatched up the child and ate it. Rhea hated this and tricked him by hiding one of their sons, Zeus, by wrapping a stone in a baby's blanket, which Cronus ate instead. When Zeus was full grown, he fed Cronus a drugged drink that caused him to vomit, throwing up Rhea's other children and the stone. Zeus then challenged Cronus to war for the kingship of the gods. This 10-year war of the old gods, the Titans against the new gods, you could call a Clash of the Titans, a God Civil War, American Gods type story, take your pick. Ancient historians will be hating me right now for these references, but I'm pretty sure some of these comic books and these stories draw from this period. This is where Nike comes into the story. She's been described as the daughter of the Titan Pallas, an ancient god of battle and warcraft. Now, Pallas was the son of Creus, one of the original 12 Titans. Nike's mother was the river goddess Styx. Nike was also one of 4 children, the sister of Kratos, a personification of strength, Bia of force, and Zealous of zeal. You might recognise a character called Kratos, although his story is vastly changed from his mythological origins, or that of the name anyway, in the game series God of War. Nike and her siblings were close companions of Zeus himself. According to classical myth, her mother Styx was either one of the first or the first deity to come to Zeus when the god was assembling allies for the Titanomachy against the older deities, bringing her children with her. Nike assumed the role of the divine charioteer, a role in which she's often portrayed in classical Greek art. At last, with the help of the Cyclops, whom Zeus freed from Tartarus, he and his siblings were victorious, while Cronus and the Titans were hurled down to imprisonment in Tartarus. As thanks for their services, Nike, her siblings, and her mother were honoured. In Hesiod's Theogony, which is 7th or 8th century BC, it said of Nike's mother Styx afterwards, "And Zeus honoured her and gave her very great gifts. For her he appointed to be the great oath of the gods, and her children to live with him always. And as he promised, so he performed fully unto them all. Gods from hereafter would swear on the Styx or the river Styx as their oath." As for Nike, Bacleiades, in a Greek lyric of the 5th century BC said, "Nike, in gold-rich Olympus you stand beside Zeus and judge the outcome of prowess for both immortals and mortals." When the giant Typhus besieged Olympus later in legend, Nike had another role to play. Now Typhus was a winged giant said to be so huge that his head brushed the stars. He was man-shaped from the waist up, with 2 coiled serpents in place of legs, 100 serpent heads for fingers, a filthy matted beard, pointed ears, and eyes flashing fire. Somewhat of a big deal then. Bacleiades in an account says that when the monster Typhus besieged Olympus, all the gods fled, except for Zeus and Nike. Nike effectively gives Zeus a pep talk and then leads him into battle. Zeus swiftly turned his golden chariot toward the round of the ethereal stars, while Nike by his side drove her father's team with the heavenly whip. Nike lifted her shield and held it before Zeus. Nike is the goddess of strength, speed, and victory. A close acquaintance of Athena, she was thought to have stood in Athena's outstretched hand in a statue of Athena located in the Parthenon. Somewhat ironic, as Athena is meant to have killed Pallas, Nike's father, in the Titan War. Nike is often seen as an aspect or facet of Athena's personality sometimes, and as a goddess, and indeed, as I said before, the temple of Athena Nike still stands on the Parthenon in Athens. Both in war and in peaceful competition, Nike flew around rewarding victors with glory and fame, symbolised by a wreath of laurel leaves, bay leaves that she wears, as well as various other symbols that she used to hold. She is often depicted with a bowl and cup for drinking and toasting victory into the gods, an incense burner, altars, and a lyre for the celebration of victory in song. Nike is seen with wings in most statues and paintings, with one of the most famous being the winged victory of Samothrace, you can see in the Louvre in Paris today. Now, both in terms of aesthetic and also similarities, as I said before, you could look to an alternative Roman version, although Greek gods and mythology started way a time before the Roman. The Roman equivalent of Nike is Victoria, the personified goddess of victory also. She was associated with Bellona, the goddess of war, and unlike Nike, Victoria was more of a major part of Roman society. Multiple temples were erected in her honour, and she was normally worshipped by triumphant generals returning from war. Unlike Nike, who was also known for success in athletic games or sporting pursuits such as chariot races, Victoria was more of a symbol of victory over death. Victoria appears widely on Roman coins, jewellery, sculpture and other arts, and she's often seen with or in a chariot, as in the late 18th century sculpture representing victory that can be seen today in Germany, in a quadriga on the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin. So quickly, how does the Mercy Winged Victory skin tie to these ideals of ancient myth and legend? Well, Nike's typical attire in paintings was a flowing gown of gold and wings, symbolising her right to grant victory or to remove it later should the victor not remain worthy. She often carried a palm branch in her right hand as a symbol of peace, and another important thing she carried, of course, was the wreath, always ready to crown a victor in battle or games of any kind of challenge. As for Mercy's staff and the association with this skin, well, a big question arises again that reflects on the somewhat confusion of the term caduceus, particularly in American culture. The Caduceus Staff is the traditional symbol of Hermes. It features 2 snakes winding around an often winged staff. Now, Hermes was the divine messenger of the gods, and this staff design has constant associations with trade, eloquence, negotiation, and similar, as well as Nike bearing it in various ancient Greek art. She often acted as a herald as well in some stories. If you want to get a bit geeky about these things, Blizzard have associated Caduceus with healing since the StarCraft games, like the Caduceus reactor that's still a talent of Lieutenant Morales in Heroes of the Storm. It's an upgrade to Medivacs in StarCraft games and similar. But there's actually a debate as to whether Caduceus should even be associated with healing at all. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, the symbol of the Caduceus got taken on by the US Army Medical Corps. For various reasons, it's been very common in the United States to find the Caduceus with its 2 snakes and wings as a symbol of medicine. However, there's also a different symbol and god who is slightly more known to be associated with medicine. In Greek mythology, the Rod of Asclepius, also known as the Staff of Asclepius, is a serpent-entwined rod wielded by the god of the same name, who was associated with healing and medicine. It's been used in modern times for medicine and healthcare, such as this symbol for the World Health Organization. So in Greek myth and legend, Nike will carry a staff, and that is likely to be the Caduceus, the staff of Hermes. Do remember, however, that Hermes' staff is debatable as to whether it's really a symbol of healing, so spare a thought for Asclepius, because Mercy as a healer could well carry the staff of Asclepius instead. As for the little flames erupting from the end of Mercy's staff when it's in an idle position, in the time of the original Olympic Games, the altar of the sanctuary dedicated to the goddess Hestia maintained a continuous flame. For ancient Greeks, fire had divine connotations. It was thought to have been stolen from the gods by Prometheus, and in a nice connection, some tellings of the story have Nike's siblings, Bis and Kratos, being part of the party who arrest and capture Prometheus for this crime of stealing godly fire and giving it to humanity. The modern Olympic flame is ignited at the site where the temple of Zeus's wife Hera used to stand, and so Mercy's staff has a nice nod to the Olympics too. Okay, we've learnt about the history behind the Winged Victory skin. Finally, for some fun, let's have a quick look at where you can see just some references to Nike in things we enjoy today. Well, first thing's obvious, the sports equipment company Nike, or Nike depending on how you want to pronounce it, is named after the Greek goddess Nike. Project Nike, an American anti-aircraft missile system, is also named after such, and a figure of Nike with a vessel was the design of the first FIFA soccer, or for me, football World Cup trophy, also known as the Jules Rimet trophy, before it was changed to the more widely known design of today. Since a design of the 1928 Summer Olympics, the back face of every Olympic medal bears Nike's figure, holding a palm frond in her right hand and a winner's laurel crown in her left. For you Aussies, the goddess appears on the emblem of the University of Melbourne, and the Spirit of Ecstasy, the hood ornament used by the car company Rolls-Royce, was also inspired by Nike. Finally, the Honda Motorcycle Company's logo is also inspired by the wings of Nike. Thanks very much for tuning in to this Skin Lore and Origins video. If you like this vid, do throw a like and share it, subscribe for more, and do let me know in the comments what you thought. For more Overwatch lore explanation, analysis of shorts, comics, cultural references, with a bit of fun too, as well as voice lines interactions, and so much more, do check out my Overwatch lore series and the videos on my channel, all in these playlists below. Massive thanks to my supporters on Patreon who make these longer to produce videos possible. If you'd like to see how you can support this kind of content from just $1, £1 or €1 a month and get some rewards too, please do check out my Patreon page linked here. Until next time, I've been Hammeh, take it easy.